get us started, I'd love to introduce first Tim Jamal. He's the Executive Director of the Technology Councils of North America, of which TAG is a proud member. I know you do some other great things in the state of California, so we'll turn it to you for some remarks, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks, Julie. I appreciate that. And thank you to you, Larry, and the TAG team for really leading the way and putting this together. We appreciate it very much. For those who don't know on the call, TECNA stands for the Technology Councils of North America. We represent state and regional and provincial technology trade associations across the US and Canada. We have a presence in over 35 states, including and the District of Columbia. And our members in turn represent over 20,000 tech firms. So we are the real drivers of tech ecosystems across the United States, including promoting entrepreneurship, startups, access to capital, workforce development programs, networking, all the things that create a vibrant technology ecosystem in this country. So we're proud to represent TAG and other groups. This is an important issue for us. Obviously, the COVID-19 didn't spare the tech industry, and we've been active over the last few days trying to make some adjustments to the relief, for which we're grateful. But there are some things that we hope can be done in the coming days and weeks, including providing support or access to loans to startups, venture-backed startups. That's an issue for our industry, and also having our membership themselves, which are Section 501c6 trade associations, access to paycheck protection. Although 501c3 organizations were provided access to paycheck protection under the CARES Act, 501c6 organizations were excluded. So we're going to be sending a letter to Congress and the administration later today on that issue. Having said that, Ashley, thank you for being here. It's a real pleasure to meet you virtually. And
same here.
And I'm already getting messages from our membership. As soon as, actually, before the new normal, they'd love to have you do a webinar in their state or their region. So maybe we can follow up afterwards.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Tim, so much for your remarks. And Ashley, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. This is just such a great group. You do so much for our economy, do so much for the state. I have a lot of good friends on here. It would take forever to name them all, but it's just a fantastic just compilation of local elected officials and bankers and entrepreneurs. So it's just a great reflection of Georgia and the technology world that we live in. So, you know, today is an important day because this is the first week that some of the major programs that affect small businesses have come online. Friday was the launch date, but this is the first week. And I know that many of you in the banking industry had Friday, and this weekend was a hectic, but one that was necessary. And I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your perseverance. This program does not work without the private sector. Nothing we do is going to work without cooperation and collaboration with the private sector. So this is important. So I want to start with people understanding exactly why and the spirit behind the CARES Act. So the CARES Act and SBA's programs in general are based around trying to ensure that employers keep their employees as long as they can, put them back on payroll if they've lost them, but allow them to maintain access to income during this crisis that we have with the pandemic. So I'm talking to you today from the SBA Regional Administrator's office, and SBA plays a very critical role throughout the region, but also around the country. So any of you that have interests around the country, this hopefully will be helpful for you. So I'm going to start off with talking about the disaster portion of SBA's programs. So we have a loan program called EIDL, and here's what's important about this. For those of you that live on the coast, any of America's cities on the coast, especially Georgia's coast, or you have experienced maybe Georgia's southwest portions of you experienced tornadoes or flooding, you're familiar with disaster. You're familiar with what SBA does in the middle of a disaster. What SBA does in the middle of a disaster is we apply the state or a small portion of the state that's affected by the natural disaster can apply for an application to SBA to specifically be deemed a national disaster for small businesses. And that's an important distinction. So that is a specific SBA declaration. It is done on a state-by-state purpose based off of information of what circumstances surrounding loss of sales or circumstances that are detrimental to small businesses. So I say that because Georgia was one of the first states in the nation to be declared a small business disaster, even though the effects were everywhere. But that would not have happened if it wasn't for very close collaboration between Governor Brian Kemp with our offices, with our small business development centers. So I really want to thank Governor Kemp's office. I really want to thank those part of our university system that really helped us dig deep to find, to be able to prove that in all 159 of Georgia's counties, that we found businesses that were affected really early. So this was the first opportunity for businesses to receive relief, was way ahead of the curve for the country, and some of that money, millions and millions of dollars are out in Georgia now because of what's called the EIDL program. That's EIDL, the Emergency Impact Disaster Loan. And what that is in particular is once Governor Kemp applied and SBA approved this disaster declaration, this allowed every small business and every nonprofit, minus religious institutions at that time, but now religious institutions are also included. So this allows up to $2 million loan immediately. You could apply once the declaration happened, up to $2 million at 3.75 interest rate for for-profits, 2.75 for nonprofits. And if you have 10 employees or you have employees, you can get up to a $10,000 emergency advance. And that advance, you don't have to pay back. So that $10,000 while you apply could be given to you in the first 72 hours if you have employees. So if you apply for a $100,000 loan, in 72 hours, you can receive $10,000 from SBA if you have over 10 employees. And then your loan now is $90,000 because that first 10 is forgiven. So that's important. Really, it's a really big a way to get money out the door very quickly. And that is a direct loan from SBA. There is no bankers involved. There are no banks involved. So that loan you can find on SBA.gov. It's an important tool. Please use it. Put it in your toolbox. It's an incredible opportunity for businesses to get working capital. But then you also, on the other side of the house, you had the CARES Act, which was passed, which is an extraordinary opportunity for small businesses. An extraordinary amount of resources that the only way they're going to reach the American people and the people of Georgia is through our community and Georgia banks. And so really appreciate the banks for all they're doing. I was just listening to Will over in Dawsonville, whose bank's doing extraordinary work there. And I know banks around the state are doing extraordinary work. And so I want to focus on that for just a quick second. So a couple of things on relief on that side. If you currently have an SBA loan, if you're a business that currently has an SBA loan, SBA is going to pay your principal and interest for 6 months. So you want to make sure your lender knows about that program. That program is going to is going to allow for your interest and principal to be paid for 6 months. Now, the PPP program, the Payroll Protection Program, is an incredible opportunity that I want to talk about now, the rules that changed this weekend as it relates to nonprofits and places of faith, because I know many of us, as much as, as a former entrepreneur myself, someone that knows that, every day of the week is you're open for business, whether you're accepting customers or you're thinking about your business. When you own it, it's every day of your life. For those of us that have those businesses, but also throughout the week, whether it's a church or a synagogue or a mosque or whatever your religious affiliation may be, the rules were set out this weekend to allow for churches to also participate in PPP, which is important. That is a big jump from where we've been previously. So now a religious institution can also apply with every possible advantage that a for-profit business can apply as well. So with that said, what does that mean? What are they applying for? Well, they're applying for up to 8 weeks of a forgivable loan that can take care of their payroll and can handle some of their overhead expenses. And generally speaking, we'll go back and look at your payroll, take a monthly snapshot of that, multiply that times 2.5, and then ultimately you can find a ratio that can include some of your overhead expenses, but as long as 75% of the total loan is still going towards employees. And that's important because the spirit of this legislation, the spirit behind what Congress and the president were focusing on, is making sure that people are employing people. So we want to make sure that the bulk of these resources go to make sure that we address the millions of Americans that are unemployed right now and give them an opportunity to get back on a payroll. So the best place for information on that is your local bank. The best place to go is your lender that you currently are working with, or find a lender that is still accepting payroll protection program applicants. That is the best place to go. Ultimately, I know we have a couple of questions after this, but ultimately this loan is meant to be forgiven. It is meant to be forgiven. The caveat there is making sure that you maintain payroll, maintain these people on your rolls. That way it allows us to ensure that we have less Americans on the unemployment rolls, and you do your part by keeping them on the rolls, and the government will forgive that loan.
We're going to turn it now to our next guest, Joseph Shuford, here today with us. Is with Synovus and is going to discuss the loan process and give some further overview of the loan packages that are available now through the CARES Act. Joseph, if you can turn your camera on, we are turning it to you now, and thank you again so much for being with us.
Sure, and Julie, I'd love to turn my camera on, but unfortunately it stopped working on me over the weekend.
Okay,
Too many
we
WebExes.
understand.
But no, I do thank you for reaching out to me and asking me to participate in this call. While I do work for Synovus Bank, and we have been working very diligently to get this program implemented and up and running for the small businesses. I'm just represent the one of many banks across Georgia that are doing that, and that put countless hours in this weekend to try to make sure that we can assist the very important and vital piece of our communities, which are our small businesses. And I will just lead off by saying as well, I am a small business owner. I have a business that has applied for these loans, both of them, because of needing to make sure that we keep our 30 employees on the payroll and keep them taken care of. So I can appreciate it from both sides. First of all, I would just like to say this is for your financial institution. If you have, you may be in a spot where you've applied and you may think it's not moving fast enough, I would just say give it a little bit of time. As Administrator Bell pointed out, this is something that was rolled out very quickly. Additional guidance came in over the weekend on what we need to be looking for and how we need to process these loans. And I believe there's probably a little bit further guidance coming out that we could expect on how we need to handle certain situations. We were very excited to see that the faith-based organizations could be included in this, and we appreciate the guidance that the administration gave us on that this weekend, because that is not something that as SBA lenders that we normally look at and know how to solve for that. And so this is being rolled out with great speed, and it needs to be rolled out with great speed. Our small businesses need these monies to help continue operations, but we are kind of adjusting on the fly to some of this. I will say, just to let the group know, there's a system that the banks use to fund these loans and to get a loan number from the SBA, and it's called E-Tran. And some of the information that is on E-Tran is not required in that application. So if your lender reaches out to you, just know that you may have answered the application, but there may be some additional information that they're going to need from you. And they will may be reaching out to you to get that information. But I can't emphasize enough, Administrator Bell mentioned it just a moment ago, and we were on a call together last week. I said the same thing, that I really believe that these two programs, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Loan, they need to be, probably are going to need to be used in conjunction with one another for small businesses because of the allowable use of proceeds. The Paycheck Loan is meant to be for payroll and help, and that's how we're basing the loan amount on. You can use those funds for something other than payroll and it still be forgiven, but it's really based off of payroll. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan has some additional use of proceeds that are not contingent upon using it for payroll or basing the loan amount off of the payroll amount. That gives the small business a little bit more working capital that's over 30 years, to be repaid over 30 years, that you just can't get working capital loans for over 30 years. And so you really need to not just be thinking about between now and June 30th. when this program runs out and it expires or it's scheduled to expire, you really need to be thinking, okay, what do I need to get me past this? If this epidemic and pandemic continues beyond June 30th, how do I need to make sure that my small business is financially healthy and to be able to sustain the economic downturn that we will experience? So with that being said, Julie, that's kind of where we are from a banking industry standpoint, and how we're looking at this is how can we help our small business clients through this. And we will probably, it's a very fluid situation, and we'll probably see some more changes this week as the administration puts out some more guidelines. But with that, I am going to address one of the questions I see in the Q&A. I see one person asked about startup. There are rules in the legislation and in the guidance that state if you are a startup business and you didn't have any payroll in 2019, that you would provide that payroll from January 1st to February 29th, and instead of having to worry about your 2019 information. So there is a provision in there for startup businesses. What happens if you started that business after February 29th? That's a tricky question, and I don't know if the administrator, Bell, if he might be able to answer that question, but we have run across that with some clients that started like on March 1st. And so there's nothing in the legislation there for them. And that's some of the things that I think that the administration will need to iron out for the small businesses. And then if you're seasonal, and if you're in the ag business and you're seasonal, and instead of using your average payroll, your payroll may be higher during this time of the year than it would be over the average. The guidelines allow for you to provide just your payroll from March 1st of last year to June 30th of this year to capture that increased payroll cost that you may have during that period. But with that being said, Julie, I'll turn it back over to you to help with the question and answer.
Thank you so much, Joseph. And I'm going to turn it over to our TAG president and CEO, Larry Williams, now, who's joining us. And Larry, I think we'll start off with talking about how important the CARE Act is to Georgia's technology community right now.
Oh, thank you, Julie. Joseph, Tim, thank you for being with us this morning. And, really, right now, it's absolutely critical. Everybody right now is relying on technology. That's how we're connecting with our businesses. That's how we're connecting with our family and our friends. Technology is the backbone. It's always been the backbone of business, large and small, and it's absolutely critical. So our companies need to be able to have this type of assistance to be able to bridge the gap. We need the technology community here. We need them supporting our networks, keeping us in business, keeping us live, so that we can do great webinars like this and then provide great data. But we also need our companies out there to continue innovating. So part of what we do is we talk about what are our members doing to either manage, solve, or cure this current crisis. And so our technology community has to be enabled and be able to continue. So these types of resources to them to be able to bridge the gap, keep payroll, keep our people employed, are absolutely critical. So I can't thank all of you enough for all the hard work that you're doing to promote, looking at how we deploy the current resources that are available, but also looking, as you have been, looking for the gaps, whether it be faith-based and now private equity-backed companies. They need these resources just as much as anyone, and we want to continue to be able to connect them with these resources. So, Julie, great question, and it's just absolutely critical.
Well, thank you. And I think we've come to that time in the program where we can open this up for Q&A. And Larry, I'll let you lead that. I know we had a number of attendees ahead of time send us their questions, and there are some here in the queue. So if you want to, Ashley, if you'll return to your screen, and Joseph, if you'll be ready by taking yourself off mute, we'll start the Q&A portion. And for those who are in the audience, you're welcome to keep typing in your questions. Thank you so much.
Well, great. Well, actually, I wanted to know, can the payroll protection program loan be given to two different companies with the same ownership if both companies have separate employees?
Yeah, I think the key is, do they have separate tax identification numbers is the issue. As long as it's under two different 2 different tax IDs, I believe you should be okay. And let's double check that with the bankers because they're the ones got to send in the application.
Okay.
Yeah,
Joseph?
yes, sir. We are looking at the tax IDs that have payroll costs. So if you have, as long as you have payroll costs on those 2 separate business entities, you would qualify, and we're keying those in.
Okay, Joseph.
So, Larry, hi Larry, it's Jim. There are a number of questions in the chat section. Are you gonna ask them?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Larry. Could you not hear my response?
A little delay in the feed here. Thank you, Joseph, for clarifying that. And here's one from an attendee. This program is available for sole proprietorships and small businesses. I see there is a cap on payroll cost. Is that for the average for each employee? Does that mean that the disbursement amount is capped, like disability payments? Or does that mean that the individual or organization would be totally ineligible?
Well, the cap there is the percentage of the total loan that can go towards outside expenses. So if you're looking at $100,000 loan, $75,000 of that needs to go towards payroll, and the other 25 can go towards the additionals such as utilities, interest, rent, and things like that. So it's not necessarily a cap. The only cap is the $10 million cap, which is on the payroll protection plan, and a $2 million cap on the EIDL loan. But overall, the only cap is the ratio you have to work within to make sure that we're doing exactly what the purpose of this legislation was, and that is to make sure people are actually staying and remaining on payroll and give you an opportunity to hire people back that you may have previously let go.
And and there is a payroll cap of $100,000.
Oh yeah, as far as the amount of salary. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm not real sure if that's what the question is or not, but if it's not, I'll answer it anyways. There may be a question out there for this, but if there is a
$100,000 can qualify, goes into the average, correct?
That's right. That's why we need a detailed payroll report on each applicant to be able to determine if any one person on your payroll made over $100,000, their contribution to your average payroll calculation is capped at $100,000.
Great. We have another question from Christine. Let's say, can you comment on the EIDL loan waiver for personal guarantee as a not-for-profit C6? How does the qualification work for the C6? And also, is there a limit to $200,000? Should the need be higher? So using the 2.5 calculation as noted under the PPP.
Okay, how about we split this one up? I'll talk about the EIDL, and we can let our folks at the banks talk about the PPP. The first part of the EIDL question, repeat that for me real quick. You said that
the loan waiver of personal guarantee as a not-for-profit C6. How does the qualification work for the C6?
Well, yeah. So there is no personal guarantee for the nonprofit. It's a little bit different there. So the C6 can apply for the loan. Whoever's the CEO or who is the chief executive officer will be the person whose information is initially put into the system. But the personal guarantee doesn't apply for C6s.
Okay, so there's no personal guarantee. You just file as a corporation.
Correct.
Okay. And then the second part is there a limit to $200,000? Also, is there a limit to $200,000 should the need be higher using the 2.5 calculation as noted under the PPP? I think they're.
So yeah, I think I agree with you, Larry. I think the blend the two together. So there's a cap on the $200,000 guarantee requirement for a personal guarantee on the EIDL loan, but there is no guarantee required at all on the PPP.
Okay, got it. All right, we have a question from Frank. If you need to make an adjustment to your application on the DRL, how is that done?
Well, if you made an adjustment, if you need an adjustment to the application, you can contact on the idle side. Definitely, there's an email address for people to do that. One of the biggest things that I try to tell folks, if you're going to apply for the idle loan, please do your best to get it as accurate as possible the first time out. There's just such a high volume. SBA is hiring all sorts of new people right now to increase our response time. But if you send an email in, let them know what you need to change. We've had people need to change email addresses and things like that. We can get it done, but we need you to just send that in as an email and exactly what you want changed, and someone will be with you as soon as possible. But it all goes back to, if you're thinking about applying, please make sure that you get most of your information as accurate as possible. The majority of the declines that we've had have just been because of incomplete applications, not because of the people worthiness to eligibility for the program.
Okay. And I take it that you also reach out for clarifications as needed as well whenever you're reviewing?
We do, but like I said, you do. But we're talking millions of applications at this point. So I want to say that, people are doing their best to reply, and small changes like that can be made. But I can tell you that your application to funding time is dramatically increased by making sure those details are accurate the first go round.
All right, a new question. Can we add to our loan amount the cost of offshore outsourcing that is necessary to fulfill our customer contracts? So this is
Have you heard that one before?
I have not. That's a new one. On the PPP program, it's all based on payroll, so it wouldn't apply to the payroll. I think that may be more of a disaster relief loan, the EIDL program, because of your ability to pay for AR and AP and other outstanding bills.
Yeah, I don't think there would be any exclusion there if it's a normal business expense and you factor that into your need for EIDL. Loan. So I think that it all, there's lots of companies that I'm sure that we've worked with that has some element of offshoring, whether call centers or otherwise. I think the cost of that can be calculated into an EIDL loan. I don't think any prohibition against that at all.
well, are we able to acquire funds for new hires through these loans?
Well, on the EIDL side is more general. So you're looking at business expenses to get you through this disaster, and I think that's the more appropriate way of looking at it. I wouldn't forecast when you're talking about how much money you need. I wouldn't forecast necessarily doubling your staff in that EIDL loan. I think you'd be running into problems there. But I think on the PPP program, again, I want to reemphasize the spirit of that law was to make sure people did maximize their ability to keep people on the payroll. So you can hire positions that you may have let go because of the virus. If you had someone let go after February 15th, you can hire them back. You can replace people for cause. If you have to fire somebody, it doesn't mean you have to keep them the entire time to be qualified. So you can hire someone new to replace someone who's currently in the system if you fire them for cause. So there are mechanisms by which you can hire people in both programs.
Okay. Here's a clarification, I think, from a previous question that we got also, Ashley. With the recent changes, do 501c6s now qualify for loan forgiveness in the PPP?
No, not that I know of. Joseph, you got anything on that? I don't think they do.
I haven't seen any added guidance on that. No, sir.
That would be one of those clarifications that would be great to get moving forward, Ashley.
Duly noted.
Great. When will we get feedback on the EIDL loan or application?
Well, that's a great question. I think when you start off on the EIDL side, the great thing about the $10,000 advance is that you have 72 hours is our goal to get you funded on that end. 2 weeks is the goal to get a response from application. But sometimes sooner than that. We've beefed up our systems. We have much more streamlined approach now. So we think we can beat our 2 week limit. We've got people who've been funded already. I think one of the very first loans in my region came from a Georgia bank, a Georgia company. and it took about 5 days. So I think goal is 2 weeks, but we're doing it a lot sooner. And on the payroll protection program, I think that's your lender's going to do everything they can to make that as quick as possible. But I'll let Joseph answer that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that Ashley said there. And we're really trying to get these things out as quick as we can. The PPP program is meant to be automated, and as much as possible, just because of the volume. And so I'm actually about to have to jump off because we're about to start testing our first, just to make sure everything's automated correctly. But the process on that really should be just a couple of days. We had a team of about 500 folks this weekend that were doing nothing but processing these, and from the client submission to underwriting to approval through E-Trans system. And so it is a much quicker process than the SBA process normally would be for a 7A loan. And we're excited to be able to start funding these today. I think it's from your financial institution, you should expect just a couple days turnaround at the most.
That's great. A quick question for the EIDL. Do you need to have payroll determination done? And if so, how do you provide that on the application? For an EIDL.
Joseph, you can go ahead and answer that one.
For the EIDL?
Oh, you said the EIDL loan for payroll?
For the EIDL, do you need?
Yeah, I think they said an EIDL.
Oh, well, no, not necessarily. The question was payroll justification or payroll verification?
Payroll determination done. For the EIDL, do you need to have payroll determination done? And if so, how do you provide that on the application?
No, that's not a specific question on the application. And actually, I'd love to share with your group a sort of couple of slides that can show you the whole application for the EIDL loan. It's been very much streamlined. People aren't having to send in a lot of tax returns, a lot of extra documents now. So I'll send you that, but that is not one of the questions on the EIDL application.
Great. Love streamlined. How does the PPP apply equally to full, or does the PPP apply equally to full and part-time employees and salary versus hourly employees?
Yes.
Can I add to that? Because it has to do with the issue of payroll costs.
Okay.
So can employers also include people that are 1099 contractors? I've seen some mixed guidance on this, though I know, for example, Bank of America does mention that contractor costs can be included in payroll costs. So if you add that, I'd like to add that to the question.
Yeah, the contractor costs, if you're an independent contractor, you would file your own separate application beginning April the 10th. And the guidance that has come out a couple of times on that's been pretty consistent, that the independent contractors will apply come the 10th. And so therefore, the question that I do have for the administration, I hope they clear up, is if you have contract labor listed as labor costs on your payroll, is that eligible for determining payroll costs? That's just one of the things right now that's kind of a little bit of a gray area for us.
I mean, it is a gray area, but I want to go back to when we first started this conversation about the spirit of the law and what was it intended to do. It was intended to make sure people who are on your payroll are allowed to stay on your payroll, and people that you may have let go to be able to bring back. And these are people who are showing up in droves on the millions of folks who are unemployed right now. So the goal is to make sure people who are on your payroll, you're paying payroll taxes for, to benefit them. If you are an independent contractor, if you are a sole proprietor, independent contractor, you still can participate in this program, but you're going to do so on your own. It's sort of like when you file taxes. You can have a dependent on your taxes, but they can't go off and file taxes too. You can't double dip. There needs to be the clarity there is pretty clear right now. I know everybody wants to try to see if there's some gray area there, but as of right now, independent contractors, as Joshua said, April 10th is the day for independent contractors. Right now, if you have independent contractors, you cannot count them as employees. They have their own day, April 10th, as was said, in which they can apply for benefits on their own.
And Julie and Larry, I'm sorry, I know I mentioned to Julie and you guys in an email that this call ended up coinciding with another one that I needed to jump on in order to start funding these loans. And so I apologize that I will need to get off. But Administrator Bell, thank you very much for all the work that you and Lola and your team are doing to help us out through this. And we're excited to start getting money into the hands of small businesses today. So
do as much as you can while you can, my friend. We get off the call and get some money out there.
There you go.
Joseph, that's important work. Thank you for taking a few minutes to be with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking me. Y'all have a good day.
Take care. All right. Actually is, what is the interest rate on the loan, and does the employer need to pay the interest in the first 8 weeks?
Okay, so the loan, I'm gonna answer both loans.
Okay.
I don't know which one they're referring to. So on the idle loan, the interest rate is 3.75 for profits. On the nonprofit side of the idle loan is 2.75. On the payroll protection program, the interest rate is 1%, and you do not have to make that payment. No, you shouldn't. If everything goes according to plan, you're going to have that entire loan forgiven anyway. You won't pay anything.
Right. So that's part of the importance of the due diligence and getting the paperwork in correct the first time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so here is a clarification. Is it true that loans will be dispersed on a first come, first served basis?
Okay. So let's start with the idle loan. The idle loan is going to be dispersed in the order of approval. So if you get there and you get approved, then you'll be funded in the order of approval. On the PPP side, I can't stress, and I'm glad that you had the bank, some friends from Synovus on today, and I know there's a lot of community bankers on today. I cannot express how important that relationship with your banker is. It is very important for you to make sure your bank knows that you want to apply for these loans, that you're looking to do so, because they're going to be the ones determining. Just as Joshua had to get off this call, I mean, they're automating their systems. They're going through the program. You need to be one of those applications that he's sending in right now, and the way that he's doing that is because they've been working with people all week long. So you need to call your bank, have that relationship, and as soon as their application's in, as soon as they're approved, that's when the funding happens. Again, it's funding on an approval basis. Approval basis. That's a good clarification. I think a lot of people have had that. And we talked about this a little bit, but again, just for clarification, someone gets approved for the triple P, are they still eligible to apply for some loans? Absolutely. The distinction here is that you can apply for both. You just can't fund both. You can't use both to fund the same thing. Right. So obviously, if you're going to use the payroll protection program for payroll, you can't go to the idle program and say, I need this to fund payroll. So you got to pick what you're using it for, which both programs actually can complement each other very well. We've had people already rolling their idle loans into their PPP program loans. Lots of reasons that you should be calling your CPA, lots of reasons you should be planning out what's best for your business. There is no correct answer for everybody. It's just according to your situation and what's best for your business.
Hey, Larry, can I jump in here?
Companies across the country, what here? Yep.
I just want to go back to the issue came up earlier on, Ashley, on 501c6 organizations like technology trade associations and chambers of commerce. Are they able to start their PPP applications, or do they have to wait and get further guidance on that issue to see if they're eligible?
They're fully eligible for the idle loan. I know that. So you can go on SBA.gov if you want and participate in the idle program if that's something you choose to do. Absolutely. On the program side for the PPP, there is no guidance that makes them eligible at this point. Okay. And so again, you would have to talk to your local lender. But there's no guidance they have, and I'm as sure as that guidance changes, I'm sure that's something that we could expedite. But at this time, there is no guidance changing to allow C6s at this time.
We're trying to get them to change that guidance.
I hear you. I see. But feel free. Don't forget the idle component. For any, I can't tell you how many chambers that serve a lot of different groups around this country have taken advantage of it, especially because you still can apply for the $10,000 advance, and that loan is deferred for 1 year. So even if you're having problems right now on the idle side, whatever loan amount you get, you don't have to start paying it back for 1 year, and it can be amortized up to 30 years in order to help your cash flow.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Other than the online economic injury disaster loan form, does anything else need to be submitted?
It just depends on how big the loan is that you're asking, and then on a case-by-case basis, the automated system will let you know what other documents you need to send in to support your loan.
Okay, so just follow the instructions then.
Pretty streamlined. I can tell you, this will be the most streamlined loan application you filled out, minus some online credit card or something like that. It's pretty streamlined.
That's great. So after the period, can the employee, after what period will the evaluation for the qualifications of the loan forgiveness happen? So how long after you get the money do you have to start thinking about, applying for the forgiveness?
Well, it's not applying for the forgiveness. You'll start from the position that you are in this program for the forgiveness. And so by June 30th is the date. June 30th is the date that we want to make sure that your banker can verify that you've done what you're part of the bargain, which is you have either allowed your employees to stay on, given a couple of caveats, you haven't reduced their pay by more than 25%. You could have hired back some people. But the great thing about this is that SBA has delegated authority to the local banks, meaning that your lender is going to make that decision, not SBA. So your lender will determine your eligibility for to have the loan forgiven, not anyone in DC, not any government official. Okay.
Here's another clarification, and I think you've addressed it, but just to make sure about this, about the C6. If you start with the EIDL loan as a C6, but later the PPP becomes, C6 has become eligible for the PPP, can you be accepted for both? And I think it's
if the C6s are eligible for the payroll protection plan, then yes, they would be afforded the same opportunity as the other eligible participants in the program.
Okay. And here's 2 hours for the EIDL. Is there anything else that can be?
I think you froze up for a second there. I missed that complete question.
All right. Let me see. If you start with the EIDL loan, this is about if you haven't received a response within 72 hours for the EIDL, is there anything else? Should they follow up, or does this mean that it's not approved? Should they assume that it's not approved, or?
Let's go back and look at whatever the date was of Monday of last week. There was a new website, a new program that was developed for the SBA website to process disaster loans due to the volume. If you applied before Monday of last week, you'll need to reapply again. And that is, so if this is an old application, you want to make sure you apply again, and the system will catch you. We'll make sure it responds a little quicker. We had to totally redo the website, obviously, because the demand was tremendous. So if you haven't heard back and you applied before Monday of last week, then you definitely want to reapply. And now if you haven't heard back within 72 hours, you want to make sure you do send an email checking on the status using your confirmation number that was given to you.
Excellent. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today. We're coming up on the end of the hour. I think we got most of our questions asked and answered. And for those that didn't, feel free to reach out to us. So if you had a question, feel free to send it to TAG's Government Relations Director, Heather Maxfield, at heather@tagonline.org. You can always find information at tagonline.org as virtual programs at TAG, webs and events to help businesses through this transition. So please be sure to check out our website, tagonline.org, for good information about technology and innovation and things that are even going to help us, as I've said, manage, solve, and cure this whole crisis. Ashley, thank you for the partnership. Tim, Jamal, Techna, thank you so much for the partnership and helping us pull this together. Can't thank you enough, and Joseph as well for breaking away. He went back to do the hard work. Julie, thank you for pulling this together.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
See you
Be
next
safe
time.
out there.
Take care.